listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Welcome to Grave Discussions. I am your host, Barnabas.
And I am your co-host, Samael. And today is a special day because we have guests. Who are our guests?
Well, I think we'll have to just let them introduce themselves, guys.
Speaking for myself and my producer, because I can do that, I'm Dave from Over Under Fair.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Also, hi, guys.
I say that every week on the... I don't know if you listen, but every week I'm like, hi, Dave.
Yeah, actually, I've heard you. We're from Over Under Fair. Roger, say hi. Hello. Producer Roger, if anyone listens to the show, is my partner in crime. We are another show on the SRD network of shows. We've had Grave Discussions on before, and to discuss the Halloween franchise with us, and they're repaying the favor by having us on to talk about what we are talking about today.
You know what's crazy? Like, he invited us to his show to discuss, like, my favorite franchise, which I believed was overrated, even though I love it. Mm-hmm. And now, your favorite, we're inviting you over here to discuss.
I know, and I also think it's kind of overrated, but it's fun.
Well, we'll talk about that, but this is episode 57, A Perfect Organism. And for the 40th anniversary of a very special film, we're going to be discussing Alien. So I'm really psyched about that, guys.
It's a very special film.
It is.
To me personally.
And to me as well. So we'll dig more into that. But first, we do have to discuss what is happening in the world of horror. So first things first, guys. Speaking of Alien, we have one high school that is just paying it such love. And they put on a live performance on stage of Alien. This is New Jersey's North Bergen High School, and they're doing it again.
Again?
Again.
Oh, man.
Encore performance.
New Jersey, damn.
Yeah, that's kind of a trek to make it from where we're at to New Jersey just to see a high school play, but don't think I haven't thought about it.
Yeah,
man. It's good.
Does the Xenomorph have, like, the Pauly D haircut since they're in Jersey? That would be fucking hilarious.
I wish. We should pitch that idea.
The facehuggers do Jim Laundry Tan.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Jim Tan facehugger.
Oh, man. I don't even want to think about that. But, yeah. No, it's it's like a real suit, like a costume, and it really looks like the Xenomorph.
Yeah, that looked badass.
But it's all the stuff is made out of, like, recycled material. And they put it on once, everybody loved it, so now they're going to be doing it yet again.
You have to with all that, with all the stuff you built for this, the sets and the costumes and such. I'm legitimately impressed at how the detail and the love that clearly went into making this stuff. It looks so good for something that only a small pocket of people will ever see. I mean, sure, you have the internet to bring a bit of that more around to people like us. We can appreciate that, but to physically be there and watch that for so few people to, to take that in, that's such a cool thing, and all the respect and props in the world to these kids for pulling this off. It's so awesome.
Not to mention that poster too. Like, that poster is not like
everything. The production, the level of production is crazy. They had a trailer for a play.
Yeah, that's but the trailer, but the poster. The reason I'm blown away by the poster is just because it's just like, high school poster. Usually, it's like some guy who's really good. They have one person, male or female, is really good at it, and they do like their best.
Yeah, the one person that could Photoshop.
Yeah, yeah. And now this person
and make the lines around the heads look like barely visible.
Yeah,
when they're cutting and pasting stuff.
Meanwhile, this looks like it was shot like professionally done. The background looks like it's like something you see in like a Blade Runner because it's a Ridley Scott. So it has the Ridley Scott look to it without being from Ridley Scott, which is amazing to me.
Dude, it's like badass. Like, nowadays, kids can do any... Like, they made all this stuff out of, like, essentially garbage. Like, you'll see it on YouTube. Look it up. Like, kids make McDonald's out of just garbage. Like, this new generation of kids is fucking crazy. And they're creative as fuck. I would have never thought, let me take possibly one of the greatest horror movies and science fiction movies ever. And let's make a play, but we're going to make it hella realistic, but we're gonna use trash. Like it's like how.
Yeah, no, they're super creative, and it makes me wish that I could like travel back in time and attend this high school.
Oh man,
like mom.
Yeah, to have been the one to do it yourself. I was immediately jealous of like, God, why didn't I think of doing something like this? I would have been. I mean, I was already a super nerd. It wouldn't have given me any worse off than I would have been. You know.
You know what a remake would have done? Clash of the Titans. I think because I would have done it better than the version that came out.
Possibly. That would have been fun. It would have been Calabas had all that shit tacked to my face. That would have been so cool.
Nancy Ellswick as no.
Let's move on here, guys. So if you are in New Jersey, you can go check out the Encore.
Enroll in this high school.
Yep, April 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So next up, if you've been paying attention to any Stephen King recently, he's been still writing quite a few books, and one of his most recent is with his son Owen King, Sleeping Beauties. And AMC has officially picked up a pilot script, basically, or made a pilot script commitment to that story. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody here has read the book. I have.
I have not. I think the conceit of it sounded interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read a Stephen King novel in some time, but I am mostly just impressed at the level of, or rather the rate of acquisition that everybody seems to be making to pick up these King properties. I mean, the dude is on every platform now. It's like Hulu has something, CBS All Access, AMC. Like the dude is just everywhere. It's like the 80s all over again, just Stephen King nonstop, and that's pretty cool. So I'm interested to check this out. I might not read the book because I'm partially illiterate anymore since there's just so much TV and movies and stuff to watch. But I don't know. It looks kind of cool. Did you like the book? Is it good?
I enjoyed the book. It got a little convoluted toward the end.
Well, it is a Stephen King book.
Right. So, after reading it, I was a little okay with that. But, or at least it didn't bug me that much.
Sure.
But the concept was very interesting. It was very allegorical, so that kind of chokes you sometimes. But but it was a pretty good read. So if you're not familiar with what the book is about, basically all the women in the world go to sleep and they have this like cocoon thing on their face. Yeah. And if you try to like rip it off or stir them, they like become crazy monsters and attack you.
Okay, so what I'm getting, since you said it was allegorical, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but Stephen King's a piece of shit is what you're saying. Because that's what it sounds like to me. Well, once you open women's eyes, they'll go crazy and after. That's some like biblical.
It's him and his son though. So like maybe they just had like a really bad run-in with Tabitha one weekend when she was like having not so great a day. It's like, don't wake mom up.
Yeah,
she was wearing a sleeping mask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, there was one important point I left out was that all the women in the world go to sleep except this one mysterious woman kind of comes out of the blue and she's awake and she seems to be kind of like supernatural and. It's interesting, I'll say that much, but it's more so kind of like without women, what men do.
They're primal and they can't take care of themselves.
This is a horror. This is horror all over the place.
Right.
I don't know. With Stephen King, I feel like I don't want to say he's overrated, but a lot of his works are, and a lot of his works are like hit or miss. Like Langoliers was okay. I don't know if you've read. I think it was The Carnival. It's like a more recent piece of shit that he wrote. I don't know. I kind of feel worried because everyone, like you said, is attaching their Stephen King here, Stephen King there. And then, even if you make a shitty adaptation, like no one's going to want to read that book. And then you've lost all potential sales for that book, too, because some fucking art house hipster douche wanted to make a fucking movie out of it.
Yeah, after the fact. But you're going to immediately boost the sales of that by attaching it to something like this. Like, as soon as you announce that, we're doing the Stephen King property, it's called, Sleeping Beauties, people are going to go find it and buy it if they hadn't read it already. So you're going to get them coming in. If it ends up being terrible, you might not get any more after that, but at least you'll get the initial surge, potentially.
That initial surge. Just like the Friday the 13th films.
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes
it's all you need.
The last Stephen King books I read were The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon and Hearts in Atlantis, which, and Insomnia, it was Insomnia that I read, maybe the name of the book was the guy who couldn't sleep
I'm pretty sure that's insomnia.
It is
Is that the name of the book? The guy
Yeah.
couldn't sleep.
The guy couldn't sleep, but he started seeing some weird stuff. But
Sounds horrifying.
yeah, Hearts and Atlantis was pretty good, but I haven't read a book since, honestly. And for Stephen King right now, him kind of say, hey, you know what? I've been good this entire time, kind of doing like this right now.
He's so hot right now.
Yeah, he's so hot.
I mean, Castle Rock, is going strong coming into a second
I've heard
season.
really
so
good stuff about that show.
It's pretty good.
Admittedly, I have not seen it, but I have heard good things.
The first, I would say 6 episodes are, really cool. But then it kind of goes from, being, you think it's going to be a horror, then it turns into this dark fantasy drama, and then it, sticks with that, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to skip out on the rest of that. That's how I felt, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it was very mysterious, and there was a lot of foreshadowing, and it tried to take you in a lot of different directions before finally sort of explaining what is going on, but not really.
They're building the whole world, though, right? Like they're taking all the King kind of universe and
season
putting
2
that all together.
Yeah.
that might
season
take some
2
time.
is supposed to be about Annie Wilkes.
All right,
And something else,
I'm in.
young Annie Wilkes. So I'm like, okay,
Okay,
yeah, I'm
I
into
can
it.
I can get down on seeing young Annie Wilkes killing some other people. For
Who would play her, though? That's the thing.
Oh, they already announced it. It's Lizzie Kaplan from Cloverfield.
Oh, I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah,
cast.
me too. So
Oh man,
I might watch season
I'm gonna
2
watch
then.
this. I'm gonna
'Cause,
catch up on the
look,
show.
First season, I'll tell you, bro. First season, don't expect anything except atmosphere, because that all it is
I
is
love atmosphere.
I do too, but
I mean, we're about to talk Alien in a few minutes.
oh yeah, but still, all it is
We'll
is
get to
just
that.
all it is just foreboding music. Like the
yeah,
and weird super. The movie like Babadook and
Sure.
fucking. Have you ever seen A Dark Song on Netflix?
I have not.
That one's good, but Hereditary, it just has a whole bunch of bass, and you're just like, the score means that something bad gonna happen. It didn't actually. They don't actually create tension like Alien, though. That's the
Sure.
thing.
All right. Yeah.
Well, guys, be on the lookout for Sleeping Beauties on AMC. I think they might be able to do a good job with it. I heard The Terror is very good, and they have that show on there right now. So let's move on. We do have word now from Full Moon about 10 new movies that they're going to be releasing.
Oh God, please let me read off the titles and talk shit.
Okay, but this is for their Deadly 10 initiative. So go ahead.
Okay, so initially the news segment was going to be about Subspecies because they're releasing Subspecies 5, Radu's coming back, which I liked, but they're also releasing, and I'm not lying, Bride of the Head of the Family. First of all, too long. You can't have "of the" fucking twice in the title
That's
because
not even
that's
the longest title.
Bride of the Head of the Family.
That is too many ofs.
The next one, Necropolis Legion. So like a dead city, and there's a lot of them. That's what I'm getting from that. Listen to this though. Sorority babes in the Slime Ball Bolorama 2. They made a first piece of shit of this film. And then Subspecies 5, Blood Rise, I can respect. And then they're making a standalone, the dude from fucking Puppet Master, Blade, he's getting his own movie, The Iron Cross. Halloween Night, Meet the Ouija's.
That sounds like a new wave band from England from the early 80s.
Yeah.
Meet the Ouija's.
It's like alternative, kind of, sort of like the Shins almost.
Yeah,
That vibe.
Yeah, you got the Shins, but all it is synth.
Yeah.
And they have their hair done it looks like a marijuana plant.
Dude, all the weed fucking metaphors, look, everyone likes to smoke weed, but don't be like, pot, in fucking Halloween night, meet the Ouija's.
Yeah. You gotta hit it twice. We really
Whoever fucking...
The first one was
I don't know,
by the way,
guys.
1988, by the way.
I don't know if Halloween really sells it. We need to try to throw that in there 2 times.
I was talking about Sorority Babe. Sorry, that's the first one. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank God. Thank you for doing our due diligence here.
I guess it's time for a sequel.
Whoever named this Halloween movie, I sincerely hope you get Lou Gehrig's
We got
disease.
4 more.
And then we have The Hourglass. You better do something before time runs out.
Is this Days of Our Lives kind of like the horror movie?
Yeah, most likely.
It's going to be some stupid shit like, yo, do this before the hourglass runs out. At the end of the movie, he's not going to be able to accomplish it. And then his daughter's going to get killed. And then he's going to be like, no! That's my prediction. Femalien, Cosmic Crush. Fuck you. Fuck you. This bullshit. Femalien. Oh my God, what sort of I know Full Moon is known for their wacky fucking movies because they got a lot of questionable shit like, yo, were you guys doing like PCP in like the community center bathtub like when this was going on? Like, because there's no fucking way people just sit down.
Is that not a title of the next movie? Doing PCP in the community center bathtub?
I wish it was.
Part 3.
Yeah.
No, but this one's equally as cliche, and it honestly, it's one of those like you hear it and you cringe. Shadow Heart Curse, like some douchey fucking emo middle schooler.
Yeah, that sounds like
Shadow
that
Heart
sounds
underscore curse XX.
yeah, that just sounds like more Twilight fanfic.
Jesus
like,
Christ.
Oh.
And the final one is the
my
Grim
favorite.
Rapper. You thought Death enjoyed killing people. He also likes to listen to AZ on the weekends.
I hope
like,
that they cast like Common or somebody. Just
No, RZA.
someone completely random.
you know RZA was in that
I
shit?
would watch that movie
Yeah, I
if
would.
RZA was in
Riz-
it.
Dude, RZA's in a horror movie that just dropped on Netflix. It's like a ghetto prom night. Like they
Sadly, not called the Grim Rapper.
Oh,
'cause
is
that's
that
taken.
Thriller?
Thriller. Yeah, they
Oh.
were like really pushing it, and it was like so like cliche, and they were like trying too hard to be hip with the black kids, and you're like, come on, bro, like a black dude made this. You shouldn't be like trying to be hip. You should just
You
like
should just be hip.
you should, but it was like people were like, yo, dog, and you felt like it was just so like it felt like a white person made it. And you're like,
Yeah.
no, we don't need another one of these. Please just give
They
us
probably
like.
did. All right. Well, speaking of dolls, let's move on to our trailers here, guys. Well, the first one is the most important, I suppose,
I agree.
and the most, I guess, received most recently. So, Child's Play has released a new trailer that kind of shows Chucky, and you can hear what Mark Hamill sounds like.
He sounds badass, but let's take a look at Chucky, shall we? What the fuck is this?
I have the
I
audio.
don't know.
I do
It's-
have the audio right here. Oh, I went too far.
Good night, Andy.
I think that's pretty sufficiently creepy.
If he came out with Joker makeup, that would be even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would like make up for everything else. You know what I hated about the trailer? Like it just looked like fucking chaos. Like it was just like, doll. Also, everyone's scared of something. Like,
I mean, I guess it makes sense because, you know, when the original Child's Play came out, toys were obviously not as advanced. So, I mean, it still had a really original idea with the doll being possessed, but the doll was supposed to kind of more mimic a nightmare form of, you know, the dolls that they had coming out at the time, all these really realistic dolls, and they were supposed to have all these cool features like be real and stuff like that. So now in the technology age that we're in, it kind of makes sense to me to kind of have Chucky be this AI overlord robot thing.
No, I'm hip to that.
Yeah.
I still think though, because it is a horror movie, it needs something like this. It is laughable that you would be able to have this thing interface with like all of these things that you use every day.
Yeah.
And because I always think about that anyway. Like, I don't need my watch to be connected to a fridge, to be connected to my door,
I fucking
to be
hate
connected to my phone. Like, I don't need any of this stuff connected. But I know that people exist that way, and that's fine. So that they're kind of making fun of that by making that kind of the central horror piece of this is pretty funny in my mind.
I just want to point out, obviously, the audio. Look up, when you get a chance, look up Brad
Dourif?
Yeah, the original voice of Chucky. And don't tell me he doesn't look like a relative of Mark Hamill. Like his uncle or brother or like stepbrother or something. They look related.
I feel like it's his cousin who like lives in Arkansas or something.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. It's just like it's.
Yeah.
I don't know. They look related to me. Except right there, he looks kind of weird there. But anyways,
No, the voices are quite similar, and I saw that some people were saying, that he was trying to like really hard to like mimic him. I mean, I think that's just Mark
it's too
Hamill.
soon to say. Like, it's
Yeah.
with only one sentence. Like I can't judge a dude's entire performance in a film based on that yet.
Right.
But I like that they're kind of keeping that close to the vest initially to not get that out there, because you don't want to spoil the whole character right off. Like, that's because this is a property that everybody knows and many people are something affiliated with that they love. Like, you don't want to just go out of your way to immediately invite direct comparisons.
Yeah.
So it was smart of them to just leave that at the back end and just have it be a snippet, because I'm interested.
I think so.
Just from seeing that, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'll go see that.
I just hope we get more of Chucky in the actual film, because if you look at the old, like the original movies, like he's in almost every shot. You know what I mean? Like he's the central point. Like, is he real? And then like you see his eyes move, you're like, maybe it's just my imagination. But that's what that was effective in 1980. not nowadays. We've seen killer dolls, so they had to do probably something completely different. Like, is the doll alive? Like, it's been done. There's been dolls. There's been Dead Silence, and Child's Play. And I'm glad they're taking a new direction. I just hope Chucky's still like funny, because he used to talk mad shit in every single one.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big thing for me. I can't imagine Mark Hamill talking shit. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think they're either gonna
maybe like not on a rated R level at least. Like he's good at being like witty as the Joker. He little cliche, but I don't know. I think they chose the right person for Chucky, because if they chose like Tom Hardy or someone to voice Chucky, that would have been a fucking.
That would have been kind of weird.
Ah, yes, I see you figured out that I am a talking doll.
Well, importantly, Mark Hamill did voice Chucky before on an episode of Robot Chicken.
Oh, very nice. So there's precedent.
So and that was like in 2008 or something like
So
that.
he's just been chomping at the bit, waiting
Basically,
for him to call him. For them to call him back.
Two things would have been hilarious as Chucky. Like if they wanted to like completely just ruin it. Either Sean Connery or Jackie Chan, one or the other would have been fucking hilarious.
I mean, I mentioned being Mark Hamill and going, what? I don't have to do Batman or being Star Wars? Sweet.
Yeah.
Sign up
Right,
for it
yeah.
right now.
You're right. He does his schedule is cleared.
Let's move on. We've got 2 trailers left. The first is The Lodge. Now, this one is kind of being heralded here and there as something basically resembling The Shining. It's supposed to concern 2 kids who are left inside a cabin, basically, while there's a snowstorm out with their soon-to-be stepmother, I guess, and she's got all kinds of psycho problems. So it looks like it's going to be kind of a psychological horror. What did you guys think of the trailer, real quick?
No release date on this, because I see some dates for other stuff. It's not important. I guess I was just curious.
Yeah, they just snagged it from Sundance, so I expect we'll hear a bit more.
So it's still kind of like developing with stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's atmospheric. Like that's. I guess that's the catchword of the day. I'll hold my breath. Like rather, I can wait. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say that this looks particularly stellar to me or anything, but. I don't know. Maybe it's fine.
I know it's kind of sounds strange, but the way I thought of it was just, like I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna reserve the judgment, because also it felt like I was watching Fargo.
Yeah,
some of the way the scenery looked to me, but
which I love that movie. I mean, from what I saw visually, it wasn't bad, but it looked a little too pale and just. I mean, I guess that's probably what it's going after. But I am mildly interested in it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't look extremely evocative and
right now it just kind of looks like
impressive.
A thing. Like it's like, well, this could be a thing. Like
it kind of like didn't like really get much of my. I guess it's not, I wouldn't say it's not my style of movie, but like when they throw something in the headline, it looks like The Shining. And to me, it's like, all right, you have a shit movie here, and you're trying to get people to watch it. Get as much money as you can before no one ever watches it again on streaming services. Like that's how it usually is when someone like makes all these comparisons. Like they never live up. So not that The Shining from the 1980 was that great of a movie anyway, but
some people would disagree with you. Yeah,
at the very end there.
Kubrick's cool. Kubrick's cool. The Shining. I just felt I was just like. It's like eating sugar-free peanut butter. That's what I fucking felt like.
Okay, fair enough.
That's incredibly descriptive in a way I totally understood.
I know you guys would know what I mean because
I do.
I don't know. That's how I felt.
So be on the lookout for that one if you are interested, guys. The next and final trailer is quite a bit crazier.
Yeah, this I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
So this movie is called Bliss, and it's a vampire movie, kind of.
Dog, I don't know. I mean, like maybe.
And will be premiering at the Tribeca Film Festival April 27th. So.
This I want to check out, honestly. This is probably, like I said, one of those movies that's going to need a Scream Team release.
I don't know. I mean, it looks well produced, but it just looks like a really, really bad acid trip with vampires is the best way I can kind of describe it.
Having recently watched Gaspar Noé's Climax, I'm totally in for more, like, tripping and blood. Like that's totally something I think I could be down for.
Dude, fucking watch
and this
Mandy.
This looks way more chaotic than that, like in its own way.
Yeah, so, I don't know who that girl is in the trailer, but
Dora Madison.
She is adorable.
She is.
She's very adorable.
Very subtle,
but also quite terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. I was I'd say from second one, like when the pulsating lights and everything happened, I'm like, you know what? feel like I'm gonna enjoy this, and then it gets real industrial, then it gets real graphic, and I'm like, you know what, man, this is something that might be
Yeah, for
interesting.
good measure, takes a hit of cocaine. It's cool.
Yeah,
man, you got to jumpstart the system somehow before you go on a killing rampage.
Fucking water.
Yeah.
I watched it earlier today, and I'm watching it. You know, I was just taking a gander here, but just when she's driving around in the Cadillac with the blood on her face too, like casual, like I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
It's pretty interesting. I feel like those shots are just placed in sometimes purely for trailer porn, essentially. This is kind of an art house movie, but it's really fucked up. But it does look cool. There's a lot of head ripping off and just blood spurting everywhere. So I'm curious to see how the vampire aspect plays into it, because it's definitely that. So we do have a few more trailers that just came out. One is called The Perfection, coming out on Netflix. There's another vampire movie called Blood from Stone. There's also a trailer for an upcoming Steve Dash documentary.
I have to see that.
I
have to see that.
Mm-hmm. We're going to move on now from the news, guys, and get right into our main segment here. But I do just want to give a quick shout out once again, of course, to Sports Radio Detroit for making this possible. So thank you. Thank you very much. So let's get right into Alien, guys. The 40th anniversary is happening this month, and next week is officially Alien Day. So, I mean, why is this movie so important?
I think apart from the fact that it is just a masterpiece of filmmaking from a very technical standpoint, everything that this movie does is so successful on a level that very few genre films that are trying to be made at a level this high ever get to really pulling off. Like it's the best of its kind. It's kind of the first of its kind, because it would be easy to say this is a sci-fi movie if it weren't for the fact that it is obviously a horror film.
Yeah.
Because sci-fi is much more dealing in with like the consequences and the actions of humanity on the world and what that impacts, and this is not that. Yeah, no. This is a complete inverse. So, but it has that for sci-fi fans too, though, of like the technical aspects of the movie and the inner workings of the ships and like how that stuff's all set up very, in a theme that you could appreciate. I think this movie is so important because it does so much to bring in so many different people. Like it's good for casual fans, it's good for horror fans, it's good for sci-fi fans. It's worth noting that it's like kind of good for women. Like it's a strong female protagonist, in kind of a final girl mold, but not so much that it's like obvious. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And it's there's nothing that this movie does wrong. Like it's obviously I'm biased because it really is like my favorite movie ever. Yeah, but I think what makes it so important is that it's left such an indelible imprint on horror and sci-fi and filmmaking in general since 1979. So you've had 40 years of movies trying to measure up to the bar that Alien is set as a sci-fi horror film, and none have touched it. No, not a one.
No, that's true. Yeah. I mean, even kind of look at, I know it was a remake, but when John Carpenter released The Thing, no one can say that he wasn't at least inspired by Alien.
Sure, and The Thing is great. Clearly, that's not a slight to anything else.
Yeah. But
there are other
Aliens,
great movies.
Alien though.
Sure.
The Thing I might be biased because I'm a Carpenter guy, but like if we're gonna speak like analytically and from a technical aspect, Alien was a much better film at building suspense. I felt claustrophobic in the movie like a lot. I don't like to be
in a movie set in space. Like, I mean, obviously that's become a trope now. Yeah, but that's definitely it was a fresher take in 1979 to really highlight the claustrophobia of that film by having such a small crew and the ducts being so confining and having them being forced to be spent in the space that they are spent in, even when they're in a larger area, like when they touch down on the planet and they're going into these big open halls, they're still tiny, so it still feels almost like they're claustrophobic within their own suits because they're so small.
Yeah,
like the scope and the way that they expertly play on specifically the claustrophobia and just that foreignness of the whole concept of what they're doing is just so masterfully done. It's so stupid how good this movie is.
Yeah, I swear. Like I tried to get some empathy, put myself in their shoes, and like the more I did that, the more I started thinking way too introspectively. I opened my window to get a breath of fresh air because, like I said, this is my second time viewing Alien. so it wasn't really like too fresh.
Right. I wanted to ask you then, without stepping on you too much. So we had peek behind the curtain. As we said, grave discussions have been on Over Under Fair before, and in that we had discussed that you had never seen Alien.
Yeah.
So this was like last October. So in the time since I saw you and now, you have seen it now twice.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite movie ever. I've seen it like 1,000 times.
And I understand
You've seen
why.
it twice. What were your initial impressions of the first time you saw it?
It was the first time I saw it, they were on the ship, and I'm like, all right, I don't really know what's going to happen. I saw I know there's a xenomorph, but I don't know the story. So, they're just floating through space. They get some signal that ends up being like a warning. The thing that really started, like, I felt it in my chest, like, because I could feel when my heart rate goes up. I pay clear attention to that shit when I'm paranoid. And the second they found that, like, giant alien fossil, that's when my heart started palpitating. And then, what's his name that had the fucking alien attached to his fucking face? Was it Kane?
John Hurt. Yeah,
Kane.
Kane.
Oh, my God. And then once it popped out of his chest, I was like, no, this can't be it. This isn't all that's going to happen. And then the cinematography, along with the score and the foreboding music, and sometimes
Score
even
is so fucking good.
even sometimes with like the lack of score, like at some
It
point,
really
it's
is almost a lack
effective
of
as
score.
shit.
Yeah.
It was just like you're just waiting. You're like, is it now? Nope. Next scene, waiting, and it didn't do it in a way that like drags out either. Like I swear to God, I opened my window so I could get some air because I was like fucking hyperventilating. I was like, there is such a thing as too much atmosphere.
Yeah.
But this was like the perfect amount because if you make me have to open a window, like it's like that. It's like there's this like noise you can play to humans, and like it'll make them increase their anxiety and their paranoia. And I think Alien found that noise.
Yeah, it's
out.
called Alien.
Yeah,
That's
basically.
exactly what it was. Like I don't know the feeling of uneasiness and their claustrophobia and like how I empathize with them. Like I tried to empathize at least. Like I have no idea what it's like to be a fucking astronaut. There was some things I was like picky about, like when he was like sitting in that room with all the controls and levers, and like there was like a light on the wall every 3 inches, and it was just like super like retro, and it was like beep,
Yeah.
beep, boop, boop, boop. I was like, that's not what spaceships look like, but okay. And then also when I saw the cat, I was like, yo, what's this fucking cat doing? It's a space cat. He's wanted to ask, leave the fucking cat at home, like, please.
You need to try to put some semblance of a familiarity for Earth. Like
Yeah.
you want to have something on board. I mean, I'm guessing, of course, as also never being an astronaut, it just feels like having something that would remind you of humanity would be a good thing to have.
Besides other humans, though.
Besides other humans, yeah, but they don't like each other. That's something that I think is really cool about this movie is that you want to feel like, oh well, they've fostered a sense of crewness with each other, and they can if the going gets tough, we have this thing running around, we can band together and we'll be able to find our wits to keep us alive.
Yeah.
And the movie, through the pacing at the beginning, takes pretty good measure. Sadly, they cut a couple of these scenes out, but makes it pretty blatant that not everybody on this ship gets along with each other.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it did not seem like it.
no, they don't. Like to get a little more nerdy with it, there are scenes that were cut that aren't necessary, I guess, for context, but scenes between the two females actresses
About Ash.
where they are about Ash, and then about their just kind of the hostility they seem to have toward each other. Ripley's decision to not let them on board leads to Lambert smacking her in the face, which is not shown in the theatrical run of the movie. Mm-hmm. So you don't have extra character context to know that all these people don't like each other, and they all kind of see Ripley as like sort of an alien in her own right. She's the youngest member of the crew. She's like a science officer, and the rest of them are concerned with like flying a ship and working on the ship. Like they're more like, we're kind of like, guns for hire-ish, but like miners for hire. And she's just kind of there. So they set this up from the very beginning of the movie to make everybody feel kind of, alienated, for lack of a better word, with each other and their surroundings, to then further force that feeling of unease on you. Like, well, these people can't rely on each other because they don't really want to. Like they're not in a position to have that happen for them. And I think that's a nice touch.
And what made that even worse, Ash is a fucking android, and then his fucking head came off, and then the arguing even escalated even more, and you're just like, everyone's gonna fucking die.
Yeah, there's never a point in the movie where you ever feel like they can count on each other to make anything happen. No. And that's important. I think that lends to a certain sense of unease that makes that all the more palpable while you're watching.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
In the theatrical version, though, they kind of seem like they get along a little bit better, but that's just because they had to cut a lot of that stuff out. And I did watch the director's cut yesterday, actually for the first time, so I noticed a lot of those scenes just felt either longer or they shortened some stuff. So it was very interesting. I had never seen Lambert slap at Ripley before.
Yeah, the first time I saw that, I was kind of taken aback. But there are context clues like through the initial setup where they're discussing specifically the characters of Parker and Brett, like the two like engineer type dudes that are trying to repair the ship when it's crashed. There's a big issue about the credits that they are expected to get from this, and they view themselves as like their own team against the rest of the crew because they're clearly not being paid as much. They're not being given the same respect. They have the scene where Ripley comes down there to talk about the ship being fixed, and they're kind of blowing her off, like literally blowing her off by like letting the steam vents out so they can have her yell at them so they pretend they can't hear her. You know,
she leaves. Brett's just like, she better not get in my fucking way, or
right?
whatever
Exactly.
He says,
So there is enough there without having to delve into deleted scenes that does touch on the unease between the crew. That I feel like it's I caught that even as like a 12-year-old. I think the first time I saw this that it's definitely marked to me.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole movie just basically makes you feel like if you put yourself in that position, you're more or less alone, and then it does such a great job of separating crew members and different parts of the ship as the story progresses as they're searching for the face hugger, or rather the chest burster, and then searching for the cat, and they kind of get into their own thing. And I mean, not only do we get those moments of isolation where the xenomorph comes out and kills them and snatches them, but we also get, some of the best jump scares, in horror, in my opinion, and one of the earliest movies to really do so. Yeah,
it has one of the most recognizable scenes in a film ever in the chest bursting scene. Like it's notable on so many levels that the actual scene being filmed without the full cast of the movie knowing to the extent of what they were about to see. Like Ridley Scott deliberately told them, like, okay, John Hurt's going to have something pop out of him, but we're not going to tell you how or where or really why. Like, it's just going to happen. So they added blood and like the effect to without the cast really knowing what the extent of the bursting was going to be. So when they show, this is all done, it's all one take too, because they wanted to keep that feeling of terror with 4 cameras, placed all around the shot. That the scene, the shot that you get of Veronica Cartwright getting covered in blood is 100% a real reaction to her like recoiling and actually falling down apparently and like going into hysterics. That they don't show all of that, unfortunately, but they do so well to build the horror of that scene by keeping the actors in the dark on it, and that shows. It shows on screen, and it makes it such a memorable scene because everybody's reaction is like organic and 100% realized.
Well, Ridley Scott apparently did a lot of kind of backhanded, behind-the-scenes sort of stuff. Like I read that he sort of convinced Yaphet Kotto, who played Parker, to kind of jab at Sigourney Weaver behind the scenes, so she would, had a more natural sort of antagonistic reaction to his character. Which is interesting.
Again, and that is shown. Like that is something. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't even think to mention that when we were talking about the isolation of the crew. That is a shitty way to do that, but
yeah, that really
worked. It works. It's just like, I guess to make the comparison to mentioning your boy Kubrick earlier, Stanley Kubrick's treatment of Shelley Duvall in The Shining is like abhorrent. Like all the behind the scenes, like the trials he put her through, screaming at her between takes and until she was like losing hair and stuff. So that's the extreme of that, and you don't want to see it get that far. But it is unfortunate that directors have chosen this as the method of getting performances out of some of their actors. But it's difficult to argue with the results sometimes. Like,
dude, when she got into it with Parker, like that felt real.
Yeah, it did. It felt totally real.
And you could tell that was like building up from before. And she's like, "You wanted me to be fucking mad? I'll be fucking mad." Yeah. And the crazy thing about him too was it Lambert?
Yeah.
When she's about to get killed, and Parker's like, "Get out of there!" And like she's had like a whole 48 seconds to like get up and run, and the xenomorph is still like slowly standing up.
Ascending.
And then he did like we watched Horror Noir, documentary about black people in horror, and this guy was like another one of those who like, oh, black dude sacrifices himself for the white person, and then I noticed that too, and like. And it was in vain because, like, she didn't fucking go anywhere. He was getting fucked up, and she's just like, let me stand here and scream because that'll do something different than if I just ran and got the fuck out of here.
I guess my counter to that would be like, how would you react in that situation?
Fucking run, bro.
Can you say that though? Like, is there something that's going to tell your brain to run away from something that giant in front of you that might lock your feet in place or just not thinking about it?
It may paralyze me with fear. Yeah.
I would be paralyzed with fear, personally speaking, and I'm a giant man. I don't run very fast, so I know my chances are already screwed. I feel like I'd have a minimal amount better if I actually just kind of squared up on it and maybe I could push it or something, but even then I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm paralyzed, like personally speaking.
I don't know about running, but I'd probably punch it because I'm reactionary as fuck, especially with doing Muay Thai and boxing before, like, and I just react to things. If something pops out at me, I like punch just out of reaction. And I can imagine me punching that thing as hard as I can and immediately regretting it as it melts my face.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're dead either.
Realistically, I would have punched it, but I can't run anyway. I have metal in my bones.
I mean, at least you'd put up a fight, before it got you. But
yeah, it wasn't a flawless victory. I'll give him a fucking shiner. I'll break one of his jaws, one or the other.
Sure.
So one of the two. That's the thing that got me too. I forgot all about the double mouth. So every time I'd fucking see the little, I was like, oh fuck. Like, I don't know why. Like, it just gave me nausea. Maybe just because like. I know these were practical effects, but goddamn, this whole movie was done so fucking perfectly. Like from the cinematography too, it did not feel like a 1970s movie. That's what it like. This movie withstands the test of time.
I think a lot of it does. I think it does.
Like the whole movie withstands the test of time. Other than like, I guess the dialogue, how they say like certain phrases or whatever, like bucko or whatever.
You have to remember too that it's in future, it's like 21, 22 or something that the story is set in. So you can kind of take some liberties, I feel like, with some of that stuff.
The future is always difficult when you're portraying it in film, especially in sci-fi specifically, because you're relying on your set, your story writers and your set designers and stuff to imagine a future that it can still be familiar to the present. So as you touched on earlier about the retro boards and how the spaceship looked with all the buttons and stuff, sure, that looks dated, but if you think about, what the future would look like, we're going to have to keep some of it similar because you can't just make all of it be completely foreign. Because as you develop things and as you design things, like cars still look like cars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You see cars from the 50s, you generally understand how you could get to where you are now in 2019. So you need to have an element of a past to have the future, showed in your movie. And I think what makes this movie so strong is that the parts that they are showing that need to be futuristic are grimy and are dirty. So you can even feel like maybe this is the future, but it's maybe kind of like a semi-recent future. It might be sort of the past
That's
too,
a good point.
like of this film.
Maybe in like the transitory stage between like technological and like super technological, where everything looks a little more professional.
Yeah, because we're still talking about miners. Like this is still something that happens. Like they are mining like an element.
Yeah.
So that's not so far out of the realm of what we understood from 1979. Like it's a thing that we still did. It's a thing we do now. Like it's not so far flung. So what this movie does really well is having the future designed as a retro future for that future, which is why I think it still looks so good.
Yeah, and it adds just to the grittiness and
100%.
The just dark appeal of this film because you're not seeing some kind of futuristic high society where it's like this whole world. That's where I feel like Alien eventually in the franchise potentially kind of devolved in quality, but
it did.
I mean,
you are not wrong.
All the lore is very cool and everything, but I mean, this movie just captures that one isolated moment in time with these people who you realistically don't need to have a reason to care about, but this crazy thing is happening to them, and it's unleashing this monster throughout the whole universe. Essentially,
I have argued forever and will argue until I am dead that the reason this movie works so much and each sequel of after this movie is like it's an immediate downgrade of what this movie is supposed to mean because just like you said, nothing has to exist for this movie to still be this movie. You don't need context for how the alien is there. You don't need to know why the eggs are on this planet. You don't need to know anything about these characters. You don't need to know even what the aliens are called. We don't need to know the word xenomorph.
Right.
Yeah,
None of this needs to exist.
Hear it.
Right. Because it doesn't exist. Well, all they know is that they see a giant thing trying to kill them, and it is terrifying. So what makes this movie so effective and why it is such I hold it in such great regard is that it can exist entirely on its own merit, and spawn a whole legacy of shit after it that tries so desperately to diminish the legacy of this sterling movie, and it is still great.
Yeah.
Like it can withstand all of the shit. It can withstand reboots. It can withstand spin-offs. It can withstand terrible video games. It does not matter what you do to Alien. You can't kill it, which is why it's so good.
Speaking of spin-offs, did you hear like the 5 like little mini movies they're making?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's going to be fucking great. That's what I'm really excited
They've
about.
already released quite a few of them, actually.
Did
I
they?
watched the first
I haven't
one.
watched them yet.
Where can I find these? Because
I think you just got to type like Alien short films probably, and it'll pop up. But there are a few. A lot of them have to deal with because they're like 7-minute long movies.
Yeah,
or
yeah, they're
something.
short.
There's a bunch with like the chest burster, the face hugger. But the latest one called Ore actually is supposed to have a full like xenomorph in it. So. I do want to watch that one. It sounds cool. But
I got to check all of them out. I hope they have like the Occam's razor approach, like the first movie did. Like the simplest is the best.
Yeah.
Because like when they start like yammering on about where this came from and why this, that ruins any mystique.
It destroys. It destroys.
Like
that.
look what happened to Halloween after the guy going after a babysitter. Why? She looks like his sister when his sister was 17. That's it. Next one. This wasn't the case before, but now this is sister. Oh my god! Like it's like
there is a lot
shark jumping.
There's a lot to be said about the. I don't know if we'll get into it all today, but there's a lot to be said about the sequels to this movie and their quality. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people love Aliens, the sequel to this movie, the direct sequel to this movie. It is good. Mm-hmm. It is fine for what it is. It is a very fun action movie. Because it is not a horror film. It is definitely not a sci-fi film. It is an action movie through and through.
The original, yeah.
There's too much. I feel that the reason I don't think personally I enjoy it as much, there's too much attention paid to the slaughtering of everybody as opposed to the building to the slaughtering of everybody. Like we're kind of hitting the ground running because this movie did all Alien the first did all of the setup for you to be scared, and now you just get to kill everything.
Right.
So it loses a bit of the nuance and a bit of the deft hand that would put Alien, where Alien is, and it's like it's overdone. There's just so much of it through so much time of just like death that it takes away any kind of appreciation that I could have for what they're trying to make as a movie, because it's not a film, if you want to go with those kind of quotes. But it's again, I'm not trying to shit all over Aliens because it's not bad, but I feel like it does a disservice to the original movie by taking away what made that movie so good and what made it work by showing you too many aliens and by doing too much with them.
That might just be the James Cameron effect.
Well, it is
honestly.
the James Cameron effect.
Yeah. So which I mean, I get that. Ridley Scott is much more prominent on establishing not only a very unique world, but one that really is just kind of about the dregs of humanity.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the Nostromo. It's a mining transport ship or whatever, and they get a call to be heroes, basically. And I mean, we do eventually get a hero from this movie in Ripley.
Yeah,
which
who
is very
excellent.
important.
I'm not gonna disparage her at all, and her performance, Sigourney Weaver's performances in future films, all great. She was nominated for an Oscar for Aliens. That has to be mentioned. Like, that's not something that even now that genre films get. An Academy Award nomination for Best Actress for an Alien movie. That's pretty fucking impressive. So
yeah, I mean the film made a lot of shockwaves, of course, but I mean none of them will have the lasting effect of Alien. I mean, it's just when you think of successful horror, this is a movie that pretty much hits all the check boxes right, and is really one of the first great slow burn horror movies, in my opinion. This is like The Conjuring before it was The Conjuring.
It takes a full 50-something minutes, I think, before we actually have the chestburster scene happen. Yeah. This is actually a knock that Ridley Scott gets a lot. Like his pacing is awful in some of his movies, just awful. Like this is no disrespect to you, producer Roger. I haven't talked in a minute, but Blade Runner is a movie that I know that a lot of people love. But one of the biggest problems I've always had with it is that it takes for fucking ever to get anything accomplished through parts of that movie where it's like not Blade Runner, it's like Blade like stroller for. But it's so I don't know, pretty. Like a full. That's the whole thing. He pays that off by having an incredible eye for his environments and for what it is he's developing. It just takes too fucking long sometimes. I think in the In the respect to Alien, it works 100% because he's trying to cultivate actual fear through the entire build-up, that when you get to the payoff, it's so earned by taking all of that time to establish this world, meet your characters, get all of this stuff, all of the gears rolling towards where we're going to end up here in the eventuality of the horror part, and the horror part is excellent once we get there. So I'm not a huge Ridley Scott guy. Ironically, this is my favorite movie, and it is his. So I guess I have to give him credit for that.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I mean, sometimes the pacing, even in Alien, occasionally feels a little much. But what I like is that everything that's happening in between the big scenes in this film, it's still relevant to the story. And it's very much a survival horror type of movie, and it does that so well. I mean, to kind of throw it in there, I know you've been playing it kind of recently, Sam, but Alien Isolation.
Same as the first movie, heart palpitations. I don't have to mention that much.
It just makes you feel super isolated, and I mean, you barely see any other humans throughout that game.
I can't play it. I tried. I can watch this movie 1,000 times and be fine, but I think I got about 12 minutes into playing the game and like, you know what? I can't do this. Like when I'm actually an active part of this, I have
it's fucking fits. It's nerve wracking, bro. You're like, what's next after this? And where would I gotta go if it comes out and chases me? Do I hit a left? Do I hit a right? And if he catches me, do I gotta start all over? Is it gonna be a jump scare? Am I gonna fucking drop the controller? And
that's
the answer to all of that is yes. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
It's one thing to actually, just watch this happening on screen versus actually feeling like you're being chased.
Yeah, can't be an active
xenomorph,
participant. I can't do it.
Yeah,
I have beaten the game. It's terrifying, but I really just brought that up because, if you have played the game, then that's pretty much exactly how you feel when you're watching this film. I mean, the tension is just very thick throughout pretty much the entire thing.
Honestly, sometimes the awkward pacing makes it even makes me more anxious, man, because sure, sometimes the pacing's like meh here and there. Like I would say, like at the 25-minute mark, I started getting like, all right, let me just check my phone a little bit. I start texting here and there, and then I'm like, no, I'm not about to do this. I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and then you start to feel that heaviness in your rib cage, and then that tightness kicks in. Like I don't know, man. Especially those hallway scenes, they were. I don't know. It's one of those movies like I can't watch if I'm blazed ever again. Like I have to be fucking. I'm serious, man.
Yeah,
like,
no, I hear you.
I can only enjoy it if I'm like watching it to like critique it. I can't like just. All right, let me feel this movie, because when you feel it, you fucking feel it, man. And I just. Only other movie that ever did that to me was the first Pumpkinhead, and ironically enough, another fucking big-headed creature.
Yeah.
Like I had nightmares about that.
That's a fair comparison.
They do have kind of similarly shaped heads.
It's not even like the it's just like the atmosphere of these movies, man. Like when someone does a good job, you know how I am with atmosphere. Like that's like the number one thing for me besides cinematography. Like, and honestly, both of these movies were ahead of their time. And like, look at that. The two most badass horror creatures are the two ones that give me the most like anxiety.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I feel like when they first land on LV-426 is when you really start feeling that this movie is going to be something unique, because the planet establishes this very just dense fog and everything with the weather. I mean, you feel like something is going to happen here and something terrifying. And that lead into when Cain descends into the breeding ground and discovers the eggs. I mean, I guess, initially I probably would think that this is going on way too long, but then the payoff when the face hugger jumps at him is basically what jumpstarts the terror in this film. And then it really feels like, okay, this is an urgent situation. And from there, narratively, I feel like the story just gets even better.
Well, it kind of reminds me of John Carpenter's A Thing in a sense, because it's kind of the same build-up as, okay, these guys are the same thing kind of remotely, except with more elements of the weather there with that. But that's how I felt when I watched it, because it kind of the same kind of pacing where, oh shit, things are getting real now, and we'll see with the dogs and everything like that. Like it's still, to this day, it's one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen on film in my life. But
yeah,
again, I mean, the character even during that period of time, right before that too, was Ash. To me, Ian Holm does such a great job. When you find out,
totally.
I mean, in terms of like an android character,
I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
always forget.
The first time I saw that, it 100% threw me. I had no idea.
Yeah, and that's the same thing when you like. don't know at all, and then you later on you have Winona Ryder who has to live up to that, I guess, to a certain degree, and then
She's no sir though.
no, she's no Sir Ian Holm, but Michael Fassbender later. But no, I thought that Ian Holm or Ash did really just. You thought just because he's a science officer, so you got the Star Trek vibe in there, like, okay, well, he's just like Spock.
Yeah, sure.
Like maybe pulling from that period at the time, if you think about it, because he was so calculating with like, well, we're just going to continue to observe and see.
I think that's a fair comparison. Yeah, like that would have been an easy thing to pick up from that, of this like the emotionless kind of spectator
that monotone
I have to
shit.
be here.
Something was off.
And that's what I thought originally too when I first saw it, because I was like, oh, he's just probably like Spock, just whatever, science, facts, blah blah blah. The robot thing, just the white.
Yeah, that threw me the fuck up. Because at first, when Parker was like, "He's a fucking android," and then you see all that white
and such excellent practical effects.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Before I get to that, real quick, I'm glad you brought him up, because it's. I think one of the greatest strengths of this movie is that Ridley Scott gets to do all the stuff he gets to do with the environments and your aliens and your sets and stuff, because they cast excellent people in this movie.
Yeah.
Everybody top to bottom is an excellent actor, and the strength of all these performances, as minimal as some of them are, and as minor as they end up being, just 7 people dealing with all this stuff, that took all of the weight off of Ridley Scott to have to direct performances as much, to just let these people act, and they're all very good at what they're doing.
We almost didn't get many of them. Tom Skerritt was kind of like a last minute thing.
Lucky as fuck we got Tom Skerritt. That John's a national treasure. That's what he is.
Tom Skerritt? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Skerritt is a national treasure.
John Hurt, of course, was initially cast as Kane and then fell out due to another obligation. So they got John Finch, I believe, to replace him. And then he developed some kind of complication from diabetes or something like that, I read. So anyway, he got out, John Hurt got back in and performed a completely memorable performance as Kane. And we haven't even talked about maybe one of my favorite character, Harry Dean Stanton.
Absolutely.
And that starts a string of him being in every single movie from 79 to like 80.
Harry Dean Stanton is a
natural treasure. Yeah.
Right.
He is... I mean, this is his second best movie. Honestly, if I talk about his best movie, it'd be Repo Man. He was awesome.
He's excellent, Repo Man.
I mean, Paris, Texas was very good as well.
That's a good one. Good call.
Of course, yeah. But no, he's fantastic, and he plays such a I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Just kind of under the radar, performance. Almost
the word is disposable. That's the thing about all these characters. Each one of them is made to be a disposable character, but they all have an indelible mark in the movie that you don't forget them. Any of them. Like, they are all doing a part that could have been anyone. And I think what's interesting also is that because this is kind of the first movie of its type, you saw it when they made Alien Covenant. Like, all these people are beautiful in Alien Covenant. Half of them. Danny McBride's there, so whatever. But, like, you get, like, Idris Elba's and people in there.
One.
Like, why are we not casting... These are minors. Like, that it makes a little more sense in the future, I guess. Everybody can be beautiful, because whatever. But this movie is, like, these are supposed to be just regular people. And then they are. And they're all old. Like, Sigourney Weaver's the youngest person in the movie. She's 29. So, if this movie was made now, everybody would be 20 and they'd all be science officers.
That's true.
How the hell would that make any sense? But... that's part of what makes this movie so interesting. Apart from that, is that it's so relatable to a character to performer basis. Like, look at all these fucking ugly schlubs. Like, this is cool.
And not to mention, you guys got to forget. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Veronica Cartwright's done a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, she has.
Oh, she's done a bunch.
Yeah, she's done. So it's
had her on the X-Files.
Yeah, she was on
5 or 6 episodes.
She was on a sequel of Candyman too.
Oh yeah,
shit.
Farewell to the Flesh.
Oh man, dude, I haven't seen that since like fucking second grade.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
Right.
When I was looking up, I'm like, wait, I think she was in a Candyman movie, and then it just confirmed it. So.
She was the original Ripley. She was cast as Ripley before they ended up giving it to Sigourney Weaver, which would have been really weird. So
it would have been.
We ended up with the right movie.
Yeah, and she also was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, I remember that pretty well. And The Birds.
Yeah, she's been acting forever. Like, she was like a child actor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah. She's been acting a long ass time. You look at her credits; they're ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
she's got some
We're
good
looking
stuff
right now. It's a fuck ton.
I forgot she was in Scary Movie too.
Dude, this is fuck ton.
No, she's had a career. I think it's funny that she did manage to have such a long and like successful character actory career by not taking the role of Ellen Ripley, because I don't know if you could have done the same thing. Like, I think her performance in this movie is good, and with only her minimal involvement in this movie to support this. But Sigourney Weaver comports herself so well for the role of heroine that it's difficult to imagine anyone else being able to do that as well as she did.
And you didn't even expect it from the beginning too, which is the amazing
absolutely
thing.
not. Like, you don't think she's going to be the one,
right?
Like, if anything, you think she'd die first. Like that's. Yeah,
but she comes out as the improbable final girl, more or less. Although obviously a lot more tough than your typical final girl.
She is strong-willed, as indicated by the scene of her refusing to let them back onto the ship with an alien. Like, that was the right call, obviously.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's intelligent, and she is strong-willed, and she's principled, and like those are all things you need to be a hero. But was she tenacious? Was she brave? I didn't think so until she was.
Yeah, I mean, once she wields that flamethrower,
sure, that'll put a lot of bravery in.
She became reactionary, and then she just fucked shit up. Like she was.
There's a great.
There's some people
scene.
you can't fuck with once you hit their adrenaline hits. Like they're like a whole different person.
Especially when she found a mother like
when they find out that the whole mission is
she just flipped the switch.
Yeah.
I mean, she almost gets choked to death by Ash, but that's to be expected with
he's an android.
being an android.
What set him off? Was it her? Here's what I didn't get. Robot lets you grab him and throw him up against the wall and shake him up and yell at him.
I don't know.
Because he knows that she's not a threat. At that moment in time, she's not actually a threat to him. He knows he's a robot. So she's just taking out her frustration from having been discovered, the situation.
I'm still upset that Parker... I mean, I guess Parker had to die because, like, we need there to be, like, one person. But, like, goddamn, it was so for nothing. At least Lambert could have been like, oh, yeah, distraction. That'll give me 8 seconds to run, but then I'm going to get caught anyway, and I don't want to be extremely exhausted while I'm being killed.
I don't want to say it's not for nothing. Like it's kind of kind of a nice character note that Parker gets to have like a mild amount of redemption because he's kind of a shithead through the beginning of the movie, like making crass comments about the female anatomy when they're eating at dinner and like just kind of being a shitheel.
Yeah,
for him to then at the end be like, oh well, fuck, I gotta try to fight this thing. Like it's a nice way to die.
The thing I like the most about that is when like it started approaching her after it killed him. Like they completely left it up to your imagination, and I was just sitting there like the whole time. Like
I don't know. I think the thing's tail went up her booty hole. That's
kind of what it's implying. Yeah. It's kind of what I thought.
I was like, I don't know.
We haven't even touched on the psychosexual aspects of this movie.
Although Ridley Scott wanted more, apparently.
Oh yeah,
is what I've read on. So.
I don't want to sound like I'm hosting your show, but since we didn't talk about it, we'll segue into it by just mentioning the actual design of the alien because we paid no reverence to H.R. Giger, designer, extraordinaire of all of this nonsense. Like my man did so much work for this movie that it's kind of impressive that he doesn't like own a piece of this like forever. He might, honestly, he probably does, but like it should be almost attached to his like Ridley Scott and H.R. Giger's Alien. Like should be like the full title of this movie because it's impossible to make without him.
Yeah, he conceptualized pretty much everything in the film, which is super important. I mean, there were some other concept artists.
He built parts of the sets.
But yeah,
Jesus.
I mean, so much of what you see visually in this film is all him. So, I mean, he deserves as much credit as anybody.
Designed all 4 stages of the Alien. Yeah. Designed the space jockey. Designed that set that they are in with the space jockey. Designed the ship, both the Nostromo and the planet when they land. Man, I don't even know. Like we could pay him all the credit in the world, so I just had to get his name out there. And that is, again, a giant reason that everything looks like dicks also. Because he's, my man, really into that. So that's definitely something that they wanted to have as part of this. Because it is rife through this entire movie.
We got to make a scary alien, huh? What do you want it to look like?
It's a giant dick.
His face is my schlong.
And it has a dick inside of it.
So and I think it was either H.R. Giger or the concept artist, I forget his name exactly, Ron something, I think. But somebody,
something.
I think so, yeah. But one of them actually originally created the alien with eyes. I'm glad they took that away. But I mean, the sexual connotations are definitely kind of there. I'm glad that a lot of it was cut out, at least the really explicit parts. But I mean, you can't overlook that in the design of the xenomorph.
I think all of it. I think the entire movie is sexual. Everything from the bursting, the man gestating a thing that burst out of him to ruin his body, from the very fallopian tunnels that we're crawling through inside the ship and inside the planet. Eggs. I mean, come on.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
just think about just think about the final scene of this film. You know, when Balaji Badejo as the alien,
my
of
dude, the
course,
alien,
is hidden in that little sideways.
Dude, I didn't even
thing.
fucking
I mean,
see
he
his
looks
bitch ass at first.
It's super good.
He looks
Yeah.
like that tubing. You
Yeah.
know? So it's very.
It's such a good
provocative
reveal. It's
kind
such
of.
a good reveal.
It is.
I like jumped out of my chair the first time I saw this movie in that scene.
Oh, it was absolutely
What
insane.
I wanna
just wasn't
know
expecting it at all.
Is who the fuck has grappling hooks in space?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, when she blew him out of there, that was the only practical aspect of this film.
It's the one part that
Effects
kind
that,
of
you know,
that
is
kind of fails now. Yeah.
But I mean, hey, kudos for
One part-
being so ambitious.
One part though that confused me is as soon as that door opened, the 800-pound alien gets pulled back. She's standing still like, I am a strong woman. It's like, no, gravity will pull your ass out of there too. Like she wasn't
I
holding
think
on
she
to
was
shit.
strapped
For
into
all
that
the-
chair.
I don't know. She would have got yanked the fuck out of there.
For all the technology in the world, we still rely on the most two basic things: fire and metal.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the grappling hook is simply something that you would think that any ship in the future would have. You think wouldn't have, like, you know,
Well, they're
laser-
miners.
Right.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, like, you know,
keep
with,
using that as a defense.
yeah, but you know, like even in Star Trek, they as a reference again, they used when they were mining rocks with the lava creature, they had lasers and precise tools and
Yeah.
grappling hooks.
This is a dirty future that we're in though. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they advanced to the same
But that was her-
the same technical level of efficiency as a Star Trek would have because they're just kind of
They
grinding.
did have those like
that was
makeshift
that was her
flamethrowers.
making.
Sure.
That was her emasculating the alien though. She's like, now I'm about to bust a nut on you. Wada, grappling
much,
hook, like, and that was it.
Kind of.
She's like, now I'm safe. I'm in the womb. Like,
Yeah.
That also includes the best special effect in the entire movie is how did they manage to keep that tiny pair of underwear on Sigourney Weaver?
oh my god!
Because it is the
my favorite
smallest
part is
article
seeing
of clothing.
my favorite part was seeing her little pancake booty. Like that was my whole
Really,
favorite,
really
bro.
was.
I don't want to devolve it into something gross, but Jesus Christ, like that's a feat. By
It's like,
itself.
dude, even plumbers don't do that shit. At least pull it up. Like I could see your
The-
tailbone.
At least the whole movie, and you know, with that scene in there was shocking.
kind of.
So
Yeah,
I was like, yo, why did? What's the budget on this film? 11 million? Can we get me bigger underwear? Now we'll be going over the budget.
Yeah.
By how much?
I don't know. That's like,
Realistically, we could spend
22nd
another
century.
million.
Ridley Scott is British though. So it's like, oh, just didn't. There's just one money in the
Yeah,
budget
he
for more
doesn't really
fabric.
care.
I just use like a New York / Boston accent because to me that's the most scummy. Like, you know, there's like the shadiest. It's like, hey, come here, let me show you something. It's like,
I mean, Granny
no,
Panties
thank you.
sales went through the roof that year.
Oh, my God.
So,
hey,
you know.
I guess it was doing something right.
That
I
was
want to
great,
look
though.
like Sigourney Weaver.
I bet if they ever make a remake, they're gonna have her have like a fucking G string and they're like, fuck you guys here. Like,
She can still pull it off.
don't know.
Not looking,
Oh, yeah.
looking not half bad for 70 or however old she is.
who would you cast for Ripley in a remake?
Now,
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of someone who isn't too hot. Like I don't want
Ooh.
to make that like important.
What's her
but-
name from Black Swan?
Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Well, they made Arrival. I mean, she did that.
Yeah.
So that's like
Oh.
halfway there.
Basically,
Fuck.
Alien.
Yeah.
Except
right,
not.
someone-
No, I actually have a candidate,
Okay.
Diana Guerrero from Doom Patrol.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, shit.
You know why? I think only. And, I mean, she is very attractive, but however, if you guys have seen the show, as Crazy Jane, the way she can kind of like be flexible as a character or as a, you know, just this anger and restraint and everything. I don't know. I can see her as a scientist, and
She's not tall enough.
yeah,
She's very
but-
short.
Or even
Neither is Tom Cruise.
Yeah. So there you
How
go.
tall
dare you.
is How tall
How
is
dare
Tom
you.
Cruise?
But either
I'm
way,
sorry, Tom Cruise. You're definitely 6'3".
I hope your whole religion falls apart, piece of shit.
Or even Claire Danes. I mean, if you want hell, bring Claire Danes back into the fold.
That would be kind of awesome.
Yeah,
Claire
yeah.
Danes
Claire
could pull it
Danes is
off.
Ellen Ripley.
Who was the
Screaming
there was
about
another,
terrorism.
There was another consideration for Ripley other than Sigourney Weaver and
I think
Nobody
there were a
from these
couple, right?
nobody from these teeny bopper films like fucking 13 Reasons Why.
Oh,
Like,
no,
we don't
I
need
hope
any of
not.
these teenagers in their dramas.
Although there were,
because they've been doing that lately. Like,
I think they were supposed to do something with Amanda Ripley. So I mean, a casting choice like that would make a little bit more sense. For
It
that
depends.
character.
It depends
I mean,
on where they end
depends.
up going with this because the franchise as it stands is in a really weird lurch. Like they, you know, to speak on the other movies briefly, there have been a million things. You know, Aliens, Alien 3, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant. All of them okay in degrees and mostly terrible. But the rumor before Ridley Scott got up the gumption to make Prometheus was that Neil Blomkamp of District 9 fame was going to make another one of these with Ellen Ripley as a direct
I
sequel
would have loved that.
to Alien, right? Which would have been something special. There is concept art and there is some stuff that he had done as mock-ups that do exist, and they're great and they're worth seeing. So you just go Google Alien 5 Neil Blomkamp, you'll find some shit. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen. She seems to think there's still a possibility it could. I don't know. The acquisition of 20th Century Fox recently is going to make things really weird in the immediate future.
Oh, man.
So
By Disney.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, fucking Alien and Predator, aren't they both now Disney characters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck,
It's
man.
gonna be
Why?
very
Why?
strange.
The Alien Queen is a
Why
Disney
wouldn't they
princess.
just? It's like,
Yeah.
what if when Disney was like, "Oi, Vic, can we buy these franchises from you?" I'd be like, "Fuck no, not after what you did to Star Wars.
Yeah.
What I heard, what you did to Star Wars, because I refuse to watch. I've only watched the first 6 because that to me is all of them.
They have so much money, though.
To me,
They
the
have
new
so
stuff,
much money.
fuck it, non-canon.
They do have so much money. So I want to feel like there's room somewhere to make another one of these good.
I think
'Cause,
so.
You know, I don't. In general, what are your greater feelings on these recent ones, like the two most recent, Prometheus and Covenant?
Prometheus, I kind of watched, and I wasn't that big of a fan of it, especially because you know there's only so much to connect to the original Alien mythos in that film, and it's
Because
more
they're trying
about-
not to, even though they're totally doing it.
Yeah, I mean we all kind of knew, but so that movie was odd. Alien Covenant, I did enjoy in parts. Honestly, I'm not extremely thrilled with Michael Fassbender's character being such a prominent entity in that movie, but the scenes with the alien were cool. It just doesn't feel the same when you see it, on top of the ship snarling in pure CGI fashion versus scaring the shit and killing Tom Skerritt in that vent or whatever.
Yesterday, that's when it fucking... Okay,
Yeah.
I
Two
said this
completely
before.
different things.
So Tom Skerritt is, they're telling him, no, not that way, that's the wrong way, that's the wrong way. I was like, I wonder when the thing is gonna, and then as soon as I think that, he just, and that kind of like for 1 second got me. I'm not gonna lie. I had a little monitor on just so I could see. My shit went, I was all right. I was watching a movie, I was at 95. My heart rate hit 133, then it went back down to 115 in that moment. Like, I had my little fucking meter.
The thing with this movie that it does so well, too, is it kind of fucks with you because the jump scares are kind of preceded by...
They're not cheap either.
They're not.
They're not at
but
all.
if you
They're
pay attention...
necessary.
If you pay attention, you can see the alien barely in certain shots right before the actual
I
jump
fucking
scare
didn't.
occurs.
I almost had a fucking aneurysm.
When in that scene specifically, once he kind of gets all the way down and sits down against that wall, you can see the faint outline of the xenomorph before it jumps out into the jump scare. Also, the scene at the end in the escape shuttle. If you notice where in that next shot Ripley and the alien are,
the
you
head
can
was, like,
see.
right here.
But you can see the alien in that
because
but
the
you're,
scenery
you're
shot.
like, nah, that's the scenery, and then you see the head
right,
move,
because
and you're like, oh,
a good
shit.
director draws your eye to the focus that he's putting in front of you.
Yeah.
So you're watching in that scene Tom Skerritt kind of looking around and checking his stuff and looking around, and then in the escape pod, Ripley is hitting on buttons and trying to get stuff set up for her to escape. You're not looking at that part of the scenery.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
supposed to. So with the exception of like the very deliberate falling from the ceiling behind Harry Dean Stanton,
Oh, yeah.
like there's your eye is being drawn focused to a different part of the scene entirely, so that is why it works so well.
Although
that's just
interestingly,
filmmaking.
oh, it is, and I agree with you completely on that. I mean, you have to use some misdirection,
Absolutely.
if you're trying to scare somebody. But and interestingly, in one of the deleted scenes of Brett's death, there is a shot which is kind of clear as day of the xenomorph kind of hanging up in the chains, and he looks like he's curling himself up in like a ball or something. And
It's
that's
strange.
And if in the director's cut, I mean, that is technically the first time that you see the alien.
Yeah.
It's very odd, but I mean, if you're not really paying attention, then you're just looking at Harry Dean Stanton and you don't really see that, and then boom. So it's great the way that the scares are set up. I mean, I just love this movie. It's just so effective.
Probably one of the more effective horror movies in actually bringing you real horror and not just fucking campy and shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like, this is one like
there's no part of this where I feel like this isn't actually like it's a cerebral level of scaring me. You know.
Yeah. No, I agree completely, and I wonder kind of if the movie was made today and with basically the exact same structure and cinematography, just with upgraded, I guess, 4K resolution or whatever K resolution. If it would be so effective, or if people would be like, nah, this is just the jump scare movie we've already seen.
I don't know, because we'd have to presuppose then that a movie that is Alien or like Alien doesn't exist in 1979, which kind of puts horror back. Like the whole, I'm not going to go all deep dive on this, but it'd be difficult for me to imagine horror continuing the way horror continue without Alien existing, because it's such a hallmark of the genre and such an important piece of filmmaking that it's hard for me to think that you could make this movie now and have it be as effective because it didn't already happen. Like,
exactly.
We need an Alien to have this movie, to have a new Alien made now exist to be like, wow, this is great, because at that point in time, something else could have been made that would have been as good as this. I don't know.
I mean, if we didn't have it, we just kind of have slasher movies.
Yeah, because this is like a proto slasher film, like in a very small.
Who knows if Carpenter would have even got, because Carpenter loved The Thing from Another World. But you cannot say Carpenter was not inspired by Alien to make.
He worked with Dan O'Bannon, like on Dark Star or whatever. Like they were buddies, so there was definitely a sharing of ideas. That went back and forth between them. You know, so the work informs each other. You can see the results from each way. Definitely.
Oh yeah,
but I mean, just in the fact that Alien is kind of the perfect template for a good slow burn horror film, and without it, I mean, we had Halloween, which obviously inspired the 80s, basically, but, without Alien, I don't know if we would have all the inspiration that we have from that movie for how to make a good, slower paced, cerebral, scary movie. I think it would be very difficult. So
I totally agree with you.
I mean, this movie is, often heralded as just one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah,
period.
It is.
Just a perfect mixture of sci-fi and horror. And I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, every time I watch this movie, from when I was a kid watching it with my dad, because he was a big fan, I've just loved it every time. So.
Yeah, I have never tired of watching this. It's one of the few movies that I can readily put on at any point and just be like, yeah, man, I'm in it. I'm ready to watch Alien every single time. And I can't do that with the rest of the films in the series. Alien 3 gets close. I know it's kind of maligned, but there is a lot of good stuff in Alien 3. But this movie is so good that it's almost unfair that anyone ever had to keep making movies like this, because they'll never be as good. They just won't be as good as this movie.
Yeah.
Again, personal opinion. And I think it's super cool that you, Samael, managed to watch this and have a very similar sort of reaction to it as someone who has seen it a bajillion times.
Yeah, man.
And to your first viewing, like, this is still it's still good. Like, it is inspiring to me that as a new viewer you can still take away that. It stuck with me too,
honestly. I've been like thinking about it, and now I want to see the director's cut. Since you guys mentioned, I had a choice yesterday. I sent him the photo. I was like, which one to watch? He's like, if you remember the original one, watch the director's cut. I was like, I watched it once, so I'll just watch the regular one. And the regular one still got me, so I wanted to check out that director's cut. From what you guys, I want.
There's some merit there. There's definitely.
I want to see Ripley get slapped.
I didn't mention it. I didn't mention it earlier. I mean, I will say I prefer the theatrical version. But,
I do too.
I do really like that one scene in the director's cut where Ripley stumbles across Brett and Dallas, cocooned up on the wall, and she basically has to make a very tough, calculated decision on whether or not to kill them.
Dallas is asking for it.
From Dallas's pleading, I mean, she just does it. And, I mean, another scene where it proves how much she's evolved as such a strong-willed
100%.
hero.
Yeah, it was cut for time and cut for the reasons you cut things. But I think it's weird because that scene ends up being the catalyst for how they show stuff in the future. Like in Aliens, they have all of that in it. Like the cocooning and all this stuff is in Aliens, the direct sequel. Mm-hmm. You never knew that though because it was an Alien first. So you're like, why is everybody in the wall and why are they all slick and stuff? Like because they're being cultivated this way. But that existed in the first movie. You just didn't know. So that I was super thrown by that the first time I saw it and was like, man, this has been around the whole time. I just didn't know.
Yeah. This is an interesting fact. The guy who played Alien, this was his only acting role, and he vanished after this.
Yeah, they found him in
They'll
like
leave a mark, man.
They found him in like a pub or something, one of the casting directors. So it just goes to show you that, I mean, from so many improbable situations where
fucking creepy, man.
he is, from so many just random improbable situations, you can create such a good movie. And I mean, the movie had many behind the scenes activities that are kind of shocking to see if you go through like trivia and watch behind the scenes. You know, nothing was as cut and dry as it may seem in the final picture, but that's a whole other discussion. Does anybody have anything else they want to say very quickly before we wrap up?
I was going to say,
I've said,
Right.
I could talk more about Alien like all day, but I know that's not, we can't do that. So I just want to say thanks and for letting me even touch on any of it. But yeah, please continue.
No, I mean, we're really happy that we have you, Dave, and Roger, of course, on the show today. I think it's been a great discussion. So
I was going to say Alien, though. It's going to sound like funny saying this, but it's definitely in my top 5 movies ever. I'm going to include
That's high
it.
praise.
It's up there with, it sounds weird to say this, but I know you'll feel me on this one. Toy Story,
100%.
Terminator 2, and definitely Gran Torino. Like,
Gran Torino is a good
these
one.
are... I was going to say Shutter Island, but I feel like it hasn't been around long enough for me to give it that much praise, but yeah.
Sure.
Aliens
Hey
definitely...
man, you love it, you love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mad Max
Squir-
Fury Road is one of my five favorite movies ever, and that's like 4
That's
years old.
fair.
So.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is really special to me and has that place in my heart, and I think it does for a lot of people and everybody at this table. So I'm very thankful for everybody here for coming together and talking about Alien. I want to know all of your guys' thoughts about Alien as well, so you can let us know by checking out our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for Grave Discussions, and then we have a website as well, gravediscussions.net, where you can check out everything. And of course, Dave, Over Under Fair, where can the people find you?
You can find us at sportsradiodetroit.com, home of all of your radio and podcast needs for Detroit and abroad. Our show specifically, Over Under Fair, we are at Over Under Fair on Twitter, at overunderfairpod@gmail.com. Hit us up anywhere, any of those venues to engage in discussion with us on our topics. Brief concept of the show, we discuss pop culture things, whether or not they are overrated, underrated, or fairly rated, kind of in the zeitgeist of how we view and rate things. Mm-hmm. So there are some sideways steps here and there. We'll discuss maybe lists. You know, we talk about music, movies, all other ephemera, bands, food trends. Like we've covered a whole lot of stuff. Yes. Again, to touch on the episode we did last Halloween with the gentleman at Grave Discussions, we discussed the entire Halloween franchise. Mm-hmm. You know, put it in its place, let everybody know how we felt about all those movies, how much we didn't like Rob Zombie, and then we separately had a review of that film, so the new Halloween from last year. So yeah, those are all of our venues. Roger, am I missing anything?
Okay, so yeah, go check out Over Under Fair, guys, and all of the other awesome SRD content. And that's a wrap on episode 57. We'll see you next week
on Grave Discussions.
This has been an SRD production.